All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. AfterShoX, Season 2, Episode 18, number 50 overall. That's right, people. The big 5-0. Moving up. Well. Your faithful host, Kid Harlan, coming to you on a wonderful Wednesday night. Slowly getting things together as far as doing the transition for video for all platforms, getting guests for all platforms, and the World Cup, and just dealing with life and all that other stuff. But anyway, AfterShoX, number 50, coming at you right now. Where are we going to start? Well, obviously, been having a lot of American themes as of late. Talked about the brawl last week, and obviously the World Cup being in the Americas. Just made me think about American exceptionalism meets global reality or not. I mean, the first thing probably comes to mind, all the complaining about the weather, the hydration breaks. Not people there, because I've already highlighted how people are just living their best lives. And people who come to America and people who are getting a chance to experience their bucket list moment. They're just having a wonderful time. But I think the peanut galleries, and that's something that we always talk about here on Foxhole and the Foxhole. I always like to bring up those folks who can never be happy about anything. And I'm sitting here thinking, is time for some real talk when it comes to profit and maybe giving somebody a breather and a chance to hydrate this time of year is not the worst idea. I get, you folks that have your scarf and your sack lunch, hanging out with the mates, and how, what did Megan R say? It's antithetical to the game. There's a lot of things that ain't the way they used to be. Duh. And I'm really thinking hydration, break. Is it killing you that much? Go use the bathroom. Go get another adult beverage. Go make a sandwich. Go out and hit some of that good dispo stuff you got to keep you calm during all of this. Whatever it is you do. But stop complaining. And then when there's a weather delay, well, steely forbid. You want somebody to really get hit with the Grateful Dead lightning bolt, kind of like what happened in Maryland. Was that Maryland Heights? Or no, that was a RFK, wasn't it? Outside of RFK in that faithful tour of 95. Anyways, come on, folks. Real talk here, man. I mean, I get that in this 2026, we have a tendency to complain and bitch and moan about everything. But come on, y'all. Not everything has to be something that you get on the internet and scream and yell continuously about. Right? But one of the cool things about this, and I'm looking forward to this tomorrow, hopefully I'll be able to get out to the annex and level up to watch U.S. men's national team. Obviously, one of the darlings of this tournament being on home soil and a hungry soccer, I don't know, I'm going to say fandom, but just a U.S. ecosystem that has been wanting this crew to actually have a moment. And obviously, getting into the round of 32, that's a big thing. More needs to happen, though. And I love that everybody's an expert. I always crumb on the casuals. But you can tell that folks are really bought into this. I love seeing the gear. Love seeing the watch parties, as I talked about on Fox Riding the Foxhole. There's so many cool things that are happening. And I just love that the stars are shining on the biggest stage right now. Mbappe, obviously Messi. Ronaldo, after kind of stumbling in the first game, says, no, at 41, I'm going to drop a couple of goals. Mr. Haaland showing up. Man, As I said last week, these fools talking about Caitlin Clark is the biggest thing in sports. I'm like, you're really going to say that during a World Cup window when these guys, who are far bigger than anything that's going on here in America. I know the American exceptionalism, and we can't think outside of our little bubble and, hey, we play games with our hands kind of nonsense. But these guys are the biggest stars on the planet. And right now, they're doing their showcase in North America, and we should be blessed that we're able to watch it in our time zones and truly appreciate it. Truly appreciate it. The flip side of it, though, probably is sports media fatigue. I brought this up, I think, on Fox Running a Foxhole. And this whole thing that people are trying to create controversy with Alexi, Derry Henry, obviously Salatan, some of the other personalities. And you always, it's funny when you hear it from guys that played like with Alexi, like Eric Winalda and those folks, and how cranky they are about how grown up the American, soccer community is, and we don't really need the stick that Alexi brings to the table. And I sit there and think, again, you watch how shameless the Brits are, and by smoke the language, I'm sure, in the other countries, and you're going to take guys like Alexi and Clint Dempsey to task for dumbing it down. What do you think they do over there? They lick the ice cream cone nonstop. Once again, going back to always wanting to complain, and then this whole American exceptionalism that you kind of have in the background. I don't know. One thing that's cool, you know, or not cool, but just watching people kind of push back, especially people who actually love the game, understand it, don't go bonkers when there's a scoreless draw. Oh, I don't understand what's going on with stoppage time. Why don't we know this? And why is it taking so long for him to go under the hood? It's all fine because it's all part of the experience. But I like that people are kind of starting to push back. Like I was just listening to my neighbors over there talking about what they would do different so you could get more scoring in the game. The game doesn't need more scoring. I mean, there's plenty of moments, as we saw with Tunisia, where the goals can be scored. But we never say that, right? When Tarek Skubal is throwing a gem, or Shohei Itani is doing that voodoo that he does on the mound. They're not scoring enough runs, but yet we're appreciating this maestro on the mound. Once again, people stop it. Yeah, there's just so much to go into this, but I think the main takeaway, though, for me is I love that there's crickets from the complainers about the World Cup being in America. All these people that have a online presence who, basically coming into this said this was going to be a total shit show, and it hasn't been. Remember all the complaining about the pitches and the venues. Not hearing anything. Fans, as I've been saying in the podcast and web series. By the way, like and subscribe. Help a brother out. You can always use that. Love the people who joined the Foxhole experience. Anyways, it's just good to see that these people are quiet as church mouses. It's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful stuff. If it does end up being a fiasco, we'll deal with it. But for now, where we are, and we're almost through the group stage, thumbs up, fair to say. Tomorrow being a game where Pochettino can basically experiment, tinker around, protect the guys with yellow cards, possibly get CP10 some minutes since he's been out with a calf injury. It's cool. And I don't know how he's going to play it. I've heard Casey Keller just now on ESPN and others speak to what they should do in terms of keeping the momentum, and because they're probably going to face Bosnia. That was like a 90% chance that's going to be their next opponent. So yeah, I don't know. This is going to be interesting. As far as not so much tomorrow, but now that there is expectations and there's a possibility of going on a deep run. I don't think anybody that knows the Beautiful Game Live really believes they can beat the elite teams in this tournament, but to make a run and get people excited. I mean, shit, tickets for the next match to the U.S. men's national team are playing in the Bay Area. I think the lowest are starting at $3,000. So we're very thirsty for a moment. We'll see how it happens. All right, folks. When we return, we'll mix up something else. See you in a moment.
That it's in Oklahoma City, not like. I mean, obviously, I would like the Lakers to be the next dynasty. We both would, but the fact that it's a small market team that really had to build up from the, build from the ground up, I think is definitely a good sign.
Yeah, they have an incredible, Sam Presti.
Sam Presti is incredible.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
just
great.
Heck, I mean, if you really think of
chase formula has been changed. That's big. I mean, they're going back to 2004 again. This is a big change. We've had this 3 rounds and move on and win in your in type stuff now for quite.
They're at stupid level, but somehow the guy comes back, wins a 4th set, then they go into 5th set, and he pulls it off, and it's just a nutcase situation.
All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Kid Harlan here. Episode number 50 of AfterShoX. Thank you for tuning in. Tell your friends, like and subscribe. FTIN FX Media's YouTube channel. Hype the video, all that stuff. Always tell your friends. And if you want to be on, we've got some great guests in the hopper. We've had some great guests here recently. We want to keep that going throughout the summer. FTINFX@gmail.com or call the hotline 541-525-0896. Leave a message. We'd love to hear from you. Been talking with SJ Gets Down about getting her stuff back online. She's working on a big project, which is really cool. Helping her out with that. That's why there hasn't been content there, but she promises to be back here soon. Okay. Where shall we go next? Well, let's talk. I don't know. We're going to do a little mismatch here. We'll start out with this. We'll just call this the NBA's turn to play NFL. Because obviously the draft wrapped up tonight. If you watched Fearless today, you saw Jason Whitlock gushing about how this particular draft was a representation of what America should be about, the nuclear family, on and on. I get where he's coming from. It definitely, it's kind of weird, ESPN, and it's sometimes very woke agenda, kind of pushing something that the Jason Whitlocks in the world can be sitting here gushing about. But yeah, I haven't really had a chance to really unpack it, other than I know Darren Peterson, it wasn't too cranky, but he thought he should have went number 1. But instead, DeBenza goes to the Wizards and Trae Young. A lot to talk about. We'll cover that in the season finale of Foxtrotting on a Foxhole. Now, it's either Friday or Saturday. But obviously, the trades are the big thing that I want to focus on before I get to any draft talks. I'm still trying to unpack this. Obviously, the major thing that hits, and it hits. Hold on, let me wet my whistle here. Feels a little bit crusty. But Giannis, we knew he was going to be on the move. The question was where. I mean, obviously Boston and Miami ended up being the front runners. and leave it to the Godfather. Yes, that Godfather. Not Don Corleone, but Pat Riley. And I get the sense of, after watching the Knicks team that he once almost took to the summit, win the championship, he probably came away saying, I'm going to make one more run to being on the summit before I walk away from the game. I mean, obviously, like one of his mentors, Jerry West, he still has his fastball. And he let us know that by making this move. Now, I know there was all sorts of conversation about this is not necessarily... It's not a ground-shaking move in a lot of people's minds. Because for some reason, and this is the American exceptionalism coming through again, a recurring theme in this podcast, or web series episode, the fact that he's not homegrown, and that was another big emphasis about last night, was a lot of these kids were American made. Hey, Tom Cruise, what's up? Yeah, but I think this is huge, especially the Knicks just proving, and obviously the Pacers were not that far away before Halliburton went down, but it just kind of shows the NBA is very wide open right now. We talked about Homie, who is basically calling the O'Brien Trophy basically a participation award now because it seems like anybody can win it, which, even if that were true, is that a bad thing? As we keep on talking about fan bases getting the love. I mean, clearly, if you can put together a team that can get through the regular season and make a playoff run and end up at the summit, come on. There ain't nothing cheap about that, especially when we're talking about the association, given that there are some pretty good teams. Maybe not as good as we thought they were, but still pretty darn good. And there's so much to unpack with this because, one, Boston clearly on the outs with Jaylen Brown, which go figure there, but he wasn't being cryptic when he made that infamous comment after they were bounced unceremoniously from the playoffs. I guess Boston, to me, is pretty typical of this era. An era which, I forget the guy at ESPN, always escapes me, who made that comment about the participation trophy. But it's such a, they're kind of like one of the poster childs. Because we thought, along with Denver and pretty much every team, Oklahoma City, well, yeah, this is the beginning of something, as opposed to, man, this may be one and this is all you're getting. And who the hell knows if you're even going to be back anytime soon? Which is crazy, because when I left about Boston, and when they won it, because, they had lost to the Warriors, and I figured that was their moment where, oh, hey, this is where you learn how to win. And I figured, okay, they've broken through. This is maybe a chance for them to put some distance on the Lakers because they're up by one in terms of the all-time championships. But right now, we got people talking about, hey, maybe this is the win that the Celtics need. Get rid of a few pieces, fire Joe Mazzulla, and Bob Hurley goes the Dusty May route. We'll get into that in a moment. But yeah, it is crazy, though, that instead of creating another era, and obviously the Celtics being as decorative as they are, they've had quite a few eras. Whether it's Cousy and Russell, the Jones boys, all the way to the Crews in the 70s, and obviously Bird, McHale, Parrish, DJ, and obviously, Paul Pierce, and then this current group of Celtics. Well, we thought they were going to have a moment, and they still might. But obviously, if they send Mr. Brown packing, that probably isn't going to be the case. And also lost in this sea of movement, because this is where the NBA basically does its best impersonation of the NFL, where it tries to be relevant and when where it probably shouldn't, but give them credit that they have done a very good job of hogging the June window into July, with the draft, with trades, and then obviously when people start really being able to boogie and switch teams. So this is always a fun time. And somebody who's got a weird, I don't know, journey, shall we say? Julius Randle, as we call him Julie, leaves the Lakers. Lakers win a chip. Leaves the Knicks. The Knicks have now won a chip. And now he is leaving Minnesota on his way to Brooklyn. Does that mean Minnesota wins a chip? It's actually an interesting road for this guy because, obviously he battled injuries coming out of college. Kind of reckless with the handles when he was with the Lakers, but I feel like he's had some pretty good stints, in Gotham and in the Great Lakes. I was kind of surprised to see him get moved, but I think with the Timberwolves, maybe I don't know. I was gonna say what I think, but I think I'll just keep my foot out of my mouth as far as that goes, and just kind of wonder why is Julie on the move. One, and B, maybe the writing's on the wall that what we were saying about the Timberwolves a few years ago, as opposed to getting respect for them this year, thinking they were a little bit more gritty and could be a problem, but maybe what I initially said a few years ago, that they are one of these teams that will be Sacramento before you can say Buck Williams. I mean, I'm just serious, and I wonder, is Ant-Man going to find a way to force this way out of the Great Lakes? Julius is gone. Cat's got a ring. Sure, how long does Ant-Man want to be in the Twin Cities? You gotta wonder. Yeah. Because you have to think Ant-Man, one of the next gen faces, along with Wemby. Wemby, where her star is bright, and San Antonio's got pedigree. Minnesota, not so much. I'm sure he's sitting there watching Cat, Karl Anthony Towns, sipping on that champagne and just being like, oh, hell no. All right. Ooh, what else do we have here? Well, a lot to unpack here, and I'll spread this out between, hold on a second here, between this, episode 50, and then episode, 321 of Foxtrotting and the Foxhole coming up, because this just happened tonight, so I haven't had time to unpack. Ooh, boy, Caitlin Clark, again, having a week. I know, I keep saying I'm quitting the WNBA and I'm quitting the Queen's Court, but the whackballness that exists with that woman and the people that worship her and that league that does its damnedest to be the most unlikable league probably on the planet. Well, here we are. And Caitlin got hurt tonight. Of course, I was watching the World Cup, so I haven't had a chance. But I did. Well, I watched the end of the game, but Caitlin was already out. She didn't play the fourth quarter, and I probably caught like the last 4 or 5 minutes where the Mercury beat the Fever. All I can tell you is the Apostles are spinning more yarns than Oliver Stone could ever come up with in terms of all the injustices that are being done to Caitlin Clark. You think the wackos singing Carmelo Anthony, the killer, not the basketball player's praises. Yeah, there's some whackball stuff going on up in this mofo. Wow. It's crazy because it's such an analysis, I think, when it comes to the WNBA and then the Caitlin Clark effect. Because there's definitely 2 different trajectories. And it is kind of interesting, the power struggle that's going on. And you have to wonder, where is Caitlin's breaking point? I mean, at least Stephanie White came out and spoke about some of the ridiculous fouls. I mean, like I said, I haven't had a chance to unpack it, but it sounds like the referees, letting the girls be the girls as far as letting them play. Yeah, that book's not too happy. And so apparently she hurt her back again, the back that's going to be an ongoing problem for her, at least it seems, ever since she bulked up. And that's crazy, too, because, lost in this. They lost to Angel Reese back twice. And the folks that support Caitlin Clark, that is the last thing they ever want, is for Caitlin to be losing to Miss Angel Bayou Barbie. But it happened. And, boy. Yeah, but these are the same fools that think Caitlin Clark's the biggest thing in sports in a World Cup window. Yeah. But I don't know. I just think what we're seeing with this league is why the sane will never really give a rat's what about this league. I mean, there's going to be the weirdos that like ladies basketball or like certain heterosexual girls that play professional basketball and women's college basketball. But hey, that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother time. It's just really interesting that you have those folks, then you have everybody else. And that's why none of us, the same ones I like to think, care. I try. And aesthetically, and then I think about, somebody who says that I don't want to wear a 250 patch on my uniform until we give out reparations because the world has oppressed them so much, but yet I get to play professional basketball because I'm a certain somebody. I can make 6 or 7 figures. Yeah, you tell me when the insanity stops. All right, folks, we're crackling. When we come back, we will cook something else up. See you momentarily. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. AfterShoX, number 50. We're a little stripped down from what we've been doing. Didn't go with the whole production suite. Just kind of wanted to try something here with lighting. So, because we're still tinkering around and finding our way into this format. And so you probably notice that experimental things are always happening, and this is another one of them as far as the way this episode is being framed. But this is more about the lighting and sound and stuff. Other things I think we've got kind of dialed in, but there's some of the technical stuff that we're still learning about. So much easier when you're just doing audio. The video component, it has to look, sound well, and the content has to be good. Never ending. All right, where are we going here? Let's call this football, NCAA, and the culture of expectations or limitations. Well, I mean, we'll start with the NFL. It is kind of interesting because this is the quiet season, as I alluded to with the NBA. They use that opportunity when its season concludes with free agency and the draft to sort of be the belle of the ball for a few moments before training camp explodes. But the NFL, before the quiet season truly takes shape, a couple of tidbits. In Cleveland, so I say, content and entertainment, the road goes through Boulder and Cleveland when it comes to the Coach Prime sexuals and the Shador sexuals. And good grief, the whole thing about Miles Garrett not being a leader. For that Mary Kay Cabot, she definitely likes to drop. I don't know whether or not they're truth bombs, but she definitely knows how to be a fire starter as far as conversations concerning that particular club. It's like Jimmy Haslam says, honey, you do all the work for me. You take the heat, and I continue to make dumb moves, or my people do. I don't know, the temperature as far as what's going on with Shador and Deshaun, I don't know. It's such mixed signals because I do watch enough stuff with people that do content. They're really into the geeky football side, and I try to pay attention to what they're saying. And it's hard reading the tea leaves with this one because it so goes back and forth. One week Shador, or one day I should say, Shador looks like poo, and Deshaun looks like the old Deshaun, and then the other point, Shador's gonna get traded and some team because he is the hidden gem that we know our king to be is going to give a king's ransom for him. Dude, well, no. Monken's just going to make him a starter because it was destiny for the king to lead the Browns back to relevancy. Yeah, I know. I can't believe I just said all that stuff. I would go in the bathroom and throw up. But that's how these wackos in Cleveland see it. And that's the roller coaster ride that is the offseason. And thankfully then, because most teams, they're not really giving us a lot to chew on. And we don't expect that at this time of year because this is a time of expectations and there's also limitations. The limitations are you should be quiet, enjoying your last few moments before you really have to get in the lab and put in serious work for the 2026 season. Okay, let's go to college. A lot going on there for the barn door being closed and the moving vans getting their summer maintenance. We'll call this bullet point the 5-on-5 walls. The 5 and 5, not 5-on-5. It can be 5-on-5, but it's 5 and 5. So this week, the NCAA, Mr. Baker's boys and girls, well, this age restriction thing, which kind of dovetails nicely with the proposed legislation that Maria Cantwell and Ted Cruz and others are pushing forward. You got 5 years to get your shit done. Pardon my language. And I know there are basketball players who are already suing, saying, hey, we need an injunction because this is unfair to this next class. We've been raised on this, where you can do whatever you want. Why are we the ones that have to bear the brunt of it? And they'll probably find some whackball judge. As I said last week, this is why. Enough of this bullshit. Congress, you might be able to save some face here. AOC, get on board, all you folks. Fix college sports. I believe there's a pathway. And shutting down mofos that every step of the way, and these shameless, as you know what, Ben Crumps, ambulance chasing all along the way, shady agents. I can't blame them. What did we always say? Hate the game, not the player. And if I had won the genetic lottery and I was of age in this type of age, you can guarantee all the gangster lean tendencies I got, you know I'd be working this thing to the hilt. But the older and more moralistic side of me is just like, oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. And so, yeah, that's why I've been a strong advocate. And I love, like, hey, you got 5 years to get your business, either after you graduate or you turn 19, whatever happens first. Do away with this red shirt nonsense where you can play 9 MFN games and still get another year, and then come up with some cock and bull story where you get another year. Enough. COVID created a window where shenanigans rule the day. Now, for us to get to whatever is next, it's time to grab the bull by the horns. And what have I been saying all along? What have I been saying all along? In order for us to get to a better place, yeah, there's going to be some pain. And for some of you folks who were living good when Amsterdam, when Bunny Colvin let you do whatever you want in Amsterdam, that all had to come to an end. And it was a little pain. Some people got some bracelets slapped on them. Took a charge or two. It might be that harsh for y'all, because you're all still going to get paid. But corralling this nonsense in, you can't tell me is a bad thing. Well, then we got the whole thing with Sorsby. Okay, remember when, I think it was the last episode of Fox Regular Foxhole. Yeah, what was that, like 319? Or was it 320? But I was like doing homage to Guns N' Roses. You know, where do we go? Where do we go? So this is Where Do We Go, part 2. The NFL. And y'all got to know something about the NFL. I know some of you old heads that are like NFL junkies like I am know about some of the gambling scandals of the past in the NFL. You got to go back. March Leister, whatever. But the NFL doesn't play that. You show any hint of being tainted by the gambling abyss, the NFL comes down hard. And if you look at all the sports, when it comes to gambling scandals, NFL, think about it. The reason for that, when it comes to the Shield, protecting the integrity in its brand, say what you will about the Shield, but I knew that when it came to the Sorsby was chased away from being able to play in the Big 12 this year and opted for the supplemental draft. I think the NFL would just roll up the sidewalks and roll up the shutters and just be like FYMF. I didn't see that. I think the NFL would probably come up with some way to put barriers as far as this guy being able to just waltz in there. The problem with this is, we talked about the yacht crossing the Rubicon with the injunctions. So what is this like? The Queen Mary getting ready to enter into the Strait of Hell in terms of what's next? Is this kid trying to fight his way back in? I mean, this is why you have to have legislation so you can have the teeth like the NFL has. You're like, well, no, this is the reason. In the NFL, say what you will about it, but you tell me about gambling scandals. The NFL obviously has been long known about the insidious gambling element is always going to be attached to professional sports, particularly football. Right? Ace Rothstein, baby. Okay. But no supplemental draft for you. No soup for you. How does this play out? Like I said, our summer of fun is in full swing. Okay. Then we have Dusty May. That Dusty May. Oh, you mean the coach of the reigning NCAA men's basketball champions, the Michigan Wolverines, going to go coach with Cooper Flag, going to Big Dallas, hanging out where our girl, the legendary SJ of SJ Gets Down, has strong roots too. It's very troubling. I mean, amidst all the chaos, this is one more reason why I've been talking about this bill needs to get passed. That needs, has to get passed. You have somebody, this is the second Michigan coach in this decade, bolting after winning a national championship. I mean, it used to be you win a natty, and kind of still could be, but used to be kind of, you win a natty, you're throwing rose petals, gold dust at your feet, people that are offering their daughters V cards to you and stuff. I knew that was bad, but it's true. It's true. Now, basically, yeah, you can offer me all that stuff, but why do I want to deal with the current landscape that just reeks insanity and a lot of other things we can't say on here, so this thing doesn't get striked? But come on, y'all, you know what's happening here. And for somebody just with a natty at this point in time, we're not even talking about, okay, won a natty. You know, obviously you got to wait for certain things to play out. And the Mavs, obviously. And I heard that they wanted Hurley and somebody else before offering him the job. But I feel that, you know, Cooper Flag, Kyrie, and some other things, it's attractive. But I think it's more about not wanting to deal with Damnation Alley, which is the current state of college sports, especially without this something like the college sports bill, where you can keep bofos from moving the goalpost, and you can actually be adults again. Because right now, the way this is set up, dumbasses, really, because you let your lust get in the way of making rational decisions. You know, you have to have somebody do it for you. And because, like, well, just because you can doesn't mean it's a good idea. Doesn't mean integrity is not going to go down the drain and end up in that waste treatment facility that all of this has become. Just saying. Oh, man. I mean, you know, I just think Dusty May leaving Ann Arbor for the Metroplex, that is the Dallas-Fort Worth area, speaks volumes about the monster we created. The adults truly letting the inmates not only take over the asylum, but basically redefine how the asylum is going to be run. And you just happen to be somebody that's a hall monitor. Maybe they can retake the asylum. Time will tell, right? You know, we'll talk more about this and this next point, right? That you know, the College World Series wrapped up this week with Oklahoma. A good decade it's been for their women's softball team, a team for the ages, and now their men's winning, taking the 3-game series from the North Carolina Tar Heels. Sorry for our buddy Dave Winda and Annette Winda, big Tar Heel alum. Man, that was kind of a shellacking. But I would be remiss when I think about Omaha. I know what it meant to me when I was at Cal State Northridge way back in the day. Like back in the frame. You know, always, you know, as Stephen Boyce says, rep hard or don't rep at all. But I just feel that in this watered down age, where it's all about profit and it's so much more, I don't know, it's almost boutique. Like, yeah, we got a social media game and we're known for getting all of our clicks. I just feel it's like really hollow and like kind of watching this whole College World Series. And especially, I know how special it used to mean to me way back in the early 90s and late 80s. It's just kind of feels like it's lost some of its sizzle. I know I probably have been saying that for the last 3 or 4 years, but I really felt that way in this particular year. And I do wonder in this football, oh God, what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, right, because football just gorges everything in its path. Somehow basketball, it can figure out a way to like attach to the host, in that weird way, like those weird worms you get when you eat raw pork and stuff. It just kind of like clings onto the host. It's kind of how I feel about basketball, but I wonder about all the other sports and whatever is transpiring. Because the way things are going with these judges, because they're going to, right, because, find whatever whackball judge that you could ever do, how do I say this? Push your agenda forward. We're going to get to a point where Title IX is going to be somehow, I don't know, adjudicated out of his existence and everything else because we're creating the justifications to make that happen. And we seem to be okay with it, and maybe some of the attacks that are going on and the whole war when it comes to, what is going to be, when it comes to women's sports and the battle there, it's 3/4 of the way, but we're going to get into the last bloody quarter of that between, where is the end point of what we're going to allow, especially at the high school and the Olympic sport level. But yeah, I really am concerned, rambling here, really concerned about Title IX and non-revenue sports. That's one of the things that this bill that I keep talking about is supposed to be able to help solve. But there's so many holes in the dike, no pun intended. I just don't know. We'll just say damn instead so we don't get in trouble. But I just wonder, how do we bring sanity to this? As the guy, as Frank Zabraka's brother said in that classic episode before Frank gets taken out, you gave him a taste. What'd you think was going to happen? Okay. With that, when we return, we will do some parting shots and probable salty takes to get you out of here on this wonderful Wednesday evening. Hey y'all, welcome back to the Foxhole. Just getting some data here. Hold on a second. Yeah, friend of the show, Mr. Ford, is sending me a text about Alyssa Thomas passing Angel Reese as the most hated person in the W after the horror she committed on the Queen tonight. I said, I gotta unpack all this. Watch all the shows. I mean, I caught Ben Daniel, the Ben Daniel podcast, where he calls it a spade, a spade. I caught him. I caught a little bit of Maurice of Keep the Vision, watched the stream after he got hurt. But after these guys have a chance to, like, I don't know, really crystallize their thoughts and their anger and rage, tomorrow should be fun. I'll definitely speak about the reaction on the season finale of Fox Dragon and Foxhole. Okay, let's do the let's do our parting shots. Ooh, excuse me. The last hits of the allergy season here in the Willamette Valley. But let's do some parting shots and probable salty takes. Wow. So what is today? Yeah, it's the 24th. So I'm always talking about the night full of diamonds in the Foxhole and Foxhole, which starts out with a little nod to being on the bus and being that hippie, dippy, smiley kind of thing that we like so much. But I was thinking that time. So 624, this is like one of the first times I ever came to Eugene, because I've been in Eugene for a while now, but the first time I really came up here and hung out was 623, 624, 1990. Grateful Dead was playing Autzen Stadium with Little Feet as the opener. And it's just crazy for me that I think about how cool that is. And I miss that. Missing the stadium show. You know, whatever your jam is. Or especially all of us folks on the hippie thing, whether it's Dead or Fish. But being able to go do the stadium shows. You know, obviously, stadium probably means more often than not you're in a city, so you get to have that city experience as part of the journey. I so miss that so much. I sit there thinking, just even a West Coast kid and not really getting to see a lot of the cool stuff on the East Coast, but always enjoying whether it was LA, Sacramento, Eugene, obviously, wherever they're playing in the Bay Area, then Vegas and even, Phoenix and stuff like that, Denver. I just so miss that so much as far as a part of the summer. Because everything's in the festies. And if somebody is doing a stadium, it's still probably going to have 4 or 5 bands on the bill. God, it's been a hot minute. Because this would be when Cindy was still alive. When the News Factory came here. So what was that? Probably like 2018. I was thinking about that. How, like, Autzen, after the whole U2 fiasco, they have a few concerts here, but it just really sucks that we don't get to have really good concerts on a regular basis. We can have the Savannah Bananas and have them pack the place. We don't really get to have cool shows here. They don't need it because they make their own money and Uncle Phil gives them what they need. All right. Speaking of the Ducks, boy, what a week it's been for former Duck Wyndham Clark. I was ready to say Wyndham Hill, the record label. I mean, talk about Clark encounters of a different kind. We're always talking about Caitlin Clark and all the madness that surrounds her. But this guy wins his second U.S. Open. No easy feat. But in this weird era of golf, falls into the pattern. Goes to a hellacious week with the patrons at Shinnecock Hills. Those Long Island weirdos doing that voodoo that they do best. No stranger, right, after what you saw at Bethpage. Man. And then we find out that his ex, the reason he broke up with her is because she was smoking the Baker Bowl. Really smoking the Baker Bowl? I didn't have that on my 2026 bingo card or scorecard. Yeah. But yeah, this guy and the whole temper tantrum that he had at Oakmont, which somehow made him a villain because I guess people think he's just a really prissy little bee. And really heckled Rory as well, which, as a major, folks, kind of leave the roguish behavior at the gate, but y'all gonna do what you're gonna do because the culture says it's okay. But it was kind of interesting in this world where Caitlin Clark is the biggest thing ever to happen to sports, according to all the weirdos with the girl next door fantasy. But what we know to be true is it is cool to see Clark encounters of a different kind. And good for you winning your second major, or what is that, in the last 4 years? Okay. Then you've got my man, Mr. Bickerstaff, up there in Detroit, Pistons. Really pissed because this is something we really need to pay attention to. Coach of the Blazers, what's his name? Nori. Yeah, Micah Nori. So it's a deal that probably is aligned with the skinflint nature of this guy. What's his Duden, who owns the Blazers now, the cat that owns the Hurricanes, who just won a championship, as we pointed out several times in the recent weeks. But from the sounds of it, it's a real low-ball deal. Not coach-friendly. And Mr. J.B. Bickerstaff came out and said, this is a slap in the face to all of us in this profession. And I get where homie's coming from. Because basically what you're saying is, oh yeah, we can give you a 1-year deal with the other two options and it being heavily incentive-based. Because there's a lot of people out there who probably have some decent coaching chops. And if you do good, we'll talk. If not, we'll push the about to be expensive gumball of the machine and add the one that's less expensive. A very bad precedent that the Blazers are setting, or this cat that owns them. But I get that's where we're going. Right? It ties into people bolting colleges and all of a sudden these jobs being available. But I could see teams saying, especially given there are a lot of talented cats out there, you take a flyer on them. I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing. Obviously the Blazers not wanting to re-up with Thiago Splitter after the good job he did. It's hard to say, with a guy who's won 2 rings in his other professional venture that he doesn't know what he's doing. But boy, it sure is a head scratcher when you look at this NBA landscape. Can't wait to check the receipts on this one. But yeah, Mr. Bickerstaff, not happy. Okay. What else do I got here? Well, let's talk about the Barbary Coast meets Baghdad by the Bay. We've spoken at length about this controversy. I mean, I started the month and have talked throughout the month how I was waiting for the theatrics of sports in Pride Month to intersect. And lo and behold, they have. And of course, the weird thing of this, it's the Giants that is the catalyst for all of this wild energy. So much to unpack with this one. Buster Posey trying to put out fires, and probably making more fires, but making a lot of friends. Aubrey Huff, showing why he probably should have his internet privileges taken away. A lot of interesting conversation. Some thoughtful, insightful, and at times educational, coming from both sides of the equation. But boy, there's so much mudslinging, and it's just like the pigs hopping in the trough on the farm that you see when you're rolling into Sutherland. And it is, the Barbary Coast just meets Baghdad by the Bay when it comes to how ugly this has gotten. And it's so interesting when I think about, the Dodgers, like Blake Trinian, definitely spoke out in their defense, and we have noted his opposition to these Knights. What is true here? It's a very slippery slope in terms of how the players are being admonished and almost viewed as bigoted, and how that's really sort of making them, right, these almost martyrs and folk heroes, which is probably not a good thing either. You got old heads like Mike Krukow, right? He pitched in the Giants back in the day when they sucked, but he's been a voice forever. Lived in the Bay for a while, so he's standing up, for the community. But then you have a lot of folks who aren't rolling with that. I don't know whether it's just, hey, I just want to watch my Giants, or I don't like this particular lifestyle. But man, and we don't want to get into, the manager who a lot of people felt that this is way over his pay grade. But it's definitely Baghdad by the Bay hooking up with the Barbary Coast. All right, here. Let me see here. We have one more. I think we do, because I'm looking over at the screen. And Caitlin Clark thing. It's so hard, especially when you see these things and they kind of slow them down. She's quite the thespian, and I'm never gonna say she isn't going through a struggle, but it's hard for me. I remember I jumped the gun when she was at Iowa and there was the court storming thing, and I thought at the time, boy, wagging my finger about, hey, somebody's gonna get hurt. Then you kind of, break it down frame by frame. It's like, oh my goodness, you'd give Sarah Bernhardt a run. And I looked at this thing tonight. I'm sure Keep the Vision, Angry Sports, and these other guys, they will have frame by frame. It'll probably be broken down even more than frame 313 of the Zapruder film. Whew, boy. All right, anyhow. I got a lot of content coming up. Promise that. We've got some interviews for the scene that we need to get done. Gonna wrap up season 10 of Foxhole in the Foxhole. Check out the video or audio on Spotify. It'll still be on audio, and now we are doing audio and video for this as well. So you can find us on Spotify. If watching me is not your jam, but if you want to watch me, catch me on YouTube's. I'm going to try to really nail down a good rhythm for doing this. Trying to Foxhole. The scene will always be an intermittent thing, based on when guests want to be a part of it. If you want to be a part of it, ftinfx@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. 541-525-00896. All right. As always, you know what we like to say. Stay safe. Stay sane. Avoid the bracelets. Because we ain't got time for any of that kind of nonsense. If you know what I mean. Fred Dean. Have a fantastic weekend with good food. Lots of adult beverages with the people that matter. Keep it real. Keep it clean. Keep it tight. We will see you in a couple of days. More likely than not.